Hey everybody, it's Josh with the UberProAudio podcast, and on today's show, we had a great, I think I should say great at least one more time, great chat with Spike Slawson, who many of you know from the Me First and the Gimmies, and he is currently on tour with his band Uke-Hunt. They're doing a bunch of Canadian dates, that take place probably this week at the time that we're uploading this, and the following week. So please check the show notes for a full list of the tour dates. I kind of planned on talking music for the majority of this. You know, the game plan going into this interview was to talk music and, you know, how he got into it and all that kind of stuff. And we did that to a certain extent. But the vast majority of our conversation was politics and world issues and cultural things and the state of San Francisco and places like Pittsburgh and how they're changing and evolving for better or for worse. And it was great. Usually, I'll be honest, we kind of avoid political conversation just to kind of like, you know, keep the brand neutral and not upset anybody. And we didn't really go into any sort of like divisive issues that should upset anyone. And if they do, well, then don't listen to our podcast. It was just a really, really great talk. I seriously could have talked to him all day. I really mean that. I almost had to like kind of cut myself off because I wanted to keep talking to him. He's a great guy, and we'll definitely speak with him again. So yeah, really, really cool. As I said, check the show notes for all of his tour dates and links to where you can buy his albums. And I think that's it. It was a great show. Please kick back and enjoy a fantastic conversation with Spike Slawson. Cheers. How you doing?
Pretty good. Can't complain.
Right on.
Not about anything specific, but I'm sure if I thought about it.
If you want me to give you 5 minutes, you're good.
Yeah, please. If you give me 5 minutes, sure I'll come up with a whole laundry list of gripes and complaints, but I don't know. That's not what anybody wants. Nobody wants to hear that.
There's too much negativity in the world today. We got to be uber positive.
The Canadian public
exactly
deserves better.
Well, hey man, we're a pretty positive bunch of people.
Well, yeah, that's right, man. I think it's all that social engineering that we love to decry down here.
Yeah, the state's kind of crazy right now. I'm sure it'll be a nice reprieve to come up here for a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, but that's a big, long, open border you guys got there. But no, it's not really open, is it?
No,
that's
not
the dirty
really.
Little secret. Whenever we talk about no human is illegal, and then talk about our progressive neighbors to the north in the same breath, it's not that open of a border. You know what I mean? I think that's an important lesson. Object lesson for Americans to learn, you know, especially progressives, because we got some empty spots on our flank too. You know what I mean?
No, that's it's an interesting thing that a lot of people don't really realize is we have incredibly strict immigration laws. Like to get into our country, it's incredibly hard, and we have incredibly strict refugee laws as well. Like we're great once you get here, but it is in fact very hard to get here.
Right, but I mean, but then at the same time, like in cities, the big ones, the secondary ones, and I mean even out in the sticks, depending on where you are. There's a very diverse reflection of ethnicities. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Not that that's some kind of gold standard to, you know, like I think that's another like bullshit hippy dippy, you know, kind of thing. I demand diversity. You know what I mean? Like I don't know, that's kind of loaded to me too. But yeah.
Well,
and it should be, man. People are coming from different cultures. You know, you shouldn't be talking about people's genetic or like ethnic predispositions, because I don't think those exist, but there are definitely like cultural predilections and,
absolutely,
you know, that you should take into consideration when you live in a liberal democracy. You know, I
couldn't agree with you more. Well, even here, like a really unfortunate and very sad story. Just not far from where I'm in Kingston, Ontario, kind of in between Ottawa and Toronto. There was an honor killing where a father killed his daughter for dating someone who wasn't of the same religion. And it's like that was like 3 years ago, and that's in Canada. And it's like, well, that's a cultural thing. Like that's
right.
you know, and it's scary. It's scary that happens here.
Right. And I don't know, like if you were to go to, say, just you know, off the cuff here, to Algeria or to somewhere in North Africa,
Mm-hmm.
or just somewhere, like you wouldn't demand, you know, like my girlfriend or my wife needs to walk around in a bikini or something.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
You wouldn't insist on your cultural norms if you went there, but you're not going there, are you?
Yeah, exactly. No, it's
And then the problem with talking like this is that like the people, 90% of it seems like of the people that agree with you, say like in a public forum or like online or something like that, like when you scratch the surface, they really are bigots. So it's like it's really hard to find a center of the argument.
Yeah, and a lot of that, it's hugely frustrating. I find that no one wants to have a conversation. It's impossible to have a conversation. You have this division of opinions, and you're depending on where you lean, you're either right or wrong, and there is no in between, and there's no compromise, and you can't have an intelligent conversation with someone with a differing opinion. And when you do, it's typically those like classic Maury moments where you have a Nazi who's like waving the flag and everything, and someone who's super liberal, and it's not a real conversation. You know what I mean?
No, there's no shades of meaning or anything like that. And it's not even a question of being right or wrong. You're a shitty person.
Yeah.
You're both shitty people in one another's eyes.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, unfortunately, I don't think the world we live in today is not conducive to that changing or changing people's minds, because you can live in your bubble. Like it's the craziest thing. I was just tweeting, because it's an unfortunate habit I have, is going on Fox News on a daily basis to see what's upsetting the world. And there's this great article, and by great, I don't mean great at all, just talking about how the Melania Trump like cut her staff by like 3/4, and how she only needs 4 people, and how Michelle Obama had 24 people, and how much taxpayer money it's saving. And it's just like trying to make the former first lady look bad because she was actually active in doing things and running programs to help American youth, versus someone who's literally doing nothing. But then there's
which is colored as meddling.
Exactly. Exactly. But then on the other end of the spectrum,
social engineering, like we were talking about.
Yeah, but you don't, if you don't want to hear anything that's like in the middle or nonpartisan, you don't have to. If I'm a Fox News fan, if I'm a right-wing Republican, I can live in that Fox News bubble, and that's it. And nothing else exists outside that. And that's, in my opinion, that's the scariest thing. Because, and it's the same for the like extreme left people. It's like you can just live in that bubble, and everything outside of what you believe in is wrong, and it doesn't happen. It's just, it's a weird time, man. A really weird time.
Yeah, it is. And because of I think because of that, you can paint things like there are some forces for good that get colored as like populist on the other side. Like I don't know. I don't consider Bernie Sanders and like his platforms necessarily extreme.
Right.
But because of the moment that we're in, we get to color it as extreme. Like the Medicare for all thing.
Yeah.
I really don't consider that an extreme position.
I agree.
Or I mean, maybe it is populist in that it's popular.
Yeah.
You know, but that's it. And it's popular because it's a good idea.
Yeah.
It all depends on like if like you can prioritize as a society to like you can sort of like talk about like Tony Blair did, which I think that's extreme, but he supposedly belongs to the center.
Yeah.
Like, well, if we want to give people things away for free, but it's not free.
Yeah, no,
you know?
People think that.
Like it's all
not.
like, do you want to take care of old people or sick people, or don't you?
Yeah. Well, and universal,
it's kind of your job.
Universal healthcare is the one thing that I really don't keep my mouth shut on, because like I've had like obviously I'm in Canada, and I've had like 2 life-saving surgeries. I've had 4 kids. I've had multiple friends and family with cancer, some who have died, some who have went through chemotherapy and lived. and not paid a dime. Like if my parents were in the United States, they would have gone bankrupt when I was 4 years old after the first surgery I had. You know, I talked to coworkers of mine who work in the States, and they have a kid, and it costs them $10,000 to have a kid.
Right.
And it's like,
and
I have 4 kids.
Be?
I have 4 kids. I would be bankrupt just because of my children for no reason.
Right. And what good would you be to society at that point?
Exactly.
Like you can't pay the debt and the fucking the penalties that keep accruing. Like you'll never pay it.
Yeah. Oh no, there's no way. Like people who are hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, losing their houses, losing their cars, just for simple medical procedures. And the thing that bothers me the most is the argument that's like, well, help yourself. You know, take care of yourself. I don't want to pay for other people. And it's like that mindset really, I mean, besides, I don't know if you're like a believer in
it wins the world.
Well, yeah,
that mindset wins the world.
But it kills me. Like I'm not a super, I'm not like a hippie or anything, but I am a kind of a believer in karma. And I think like, hey man, if my tax dollars go to help some junkie who ODs and almost dies in a gutter somewhere, and you know my tax dollars go to save his life, I'm okay with that. Someone didn't die, and in a very minuscule way.
Someone didn't rip me off or give me hepatitis.
Exactly. Or some kid with cancer. Like you have these like pediatric cancer centers, and it's like my tax dollars are paying for that. I'm pretty fucking okay with that. That does not bother me in the least. I'm not going to tell those kids, hey, you're on your own. No, that's fucked up. Like that's really fucked up.
Yeah.
Anyway,
but I mean, it's you know, you got to kind of look at the nature of like religious belief, you know?
Yeah.
Like unquestioning religious belief, because it's kind of that same thing. Like I think like tribal allegiance, it's kind of like the same thing. Like Fox News is like they're kind of preaching.
Oh, for sure.
You know, and so like that's kind of what it is to me. Like you got to break down and deconstruct the whole like religious belief, because otherwise yeah, I mean I think that's where we're going, is that we can't actually speak logically. And I think that there are people on the right that should be listened to. Like I read The Economist, man.
Yep.
And I sometimes read, there's this website called The American Conservative, and every time they print or publish something that I agree with, it's therapeutic for me, because that means that there actually are voices, like just truly compassionate people, not some kind of tagline like compassionate conservative, you know, in quotes somewhere. Like these are actually compassionate people that care about like uplifting people's lives. You might not agree with them, but at least you know that they want what's best for people. Yeah. You know, and sometimes you see them argue for things like a universal basic income or for universal health care, just like morally and practically. Yeah. Which I find that practically is probably better, because when you're talking politics, like I think they should be like surgeons, you know? Yeah. Like, I don't think you should like them. You know, I don't think you should care whether they tip in a fucking restaurant or not. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that should be your barometer for, you know, what a good politician is. And I think we expect, both from the left and the right, we expect way too much from our politicians.
I completely agree.
Just follow the money.
Well, you know, it's funny. I was just going to say is that's the other problem, is you see, you know, hardworking, good-hearted politicians who can't stay in the game because they don't have the wallet to back it up, which is nuts. Like these campaigns are costing billions of dollars.
Well, down here, the other problem is, and I actually like, this is the part that I actually enjoy watching, is that like even people like soulless, heartless people on the right risk being outflanked to the right by even crueler, colder, more heartless people. You know, like, so that's like, it's not just money that threatens, you know, and they're not even decent, moderate politicians, man. And it's not just money that threatens them. It's even crazier people. That's kind of fun to watch, actually.
Yeah. I'm always just, the whole idea of lobbying fascinates me to no end. And we have it here to a lesser extent in Canada, but it does exist here. But I'm confident in saying it's really nothing like the States, where you've, I think it's over 100,000 lobbyists in total who are registered. And it's the weirdest thing because you're like, okay, you're paying someone to try and pass a law that benefits your business. How's that legal? Like, how is that okay? Like, people who are like backing, like, you know, or fighting, I should say, like gun control laws or things like that, and you can literally just go online and be like, oh yeah, the NRA gave them $800,000. That's all.
Yep.
Like, it's like, wait, what? Like that really shouldn't be allowed, but it no one seems to care. Like, it's just how everything works. It's how campaigns are run. It's how it keeps the wheels turning. It's fucked up.
Well, they're trying to figure out whether lies are protected under free speech too. Like a lot of that stuff, like when you talk about the Constitution and about, you know, then you're not talking about what's best for people.
Yeah.
And even the notion of talking about what's best for people, like you saw, like when they, you know, raked Michelle Obama over the coals for even just talking.
Yeah.
For even just saying, like, maybe you should eat vegetables.
Yeah. Or not
you know?
wearing sleeves, having a sleeveless dress. They tore apart for that.
Right. But I mean more like just sort of even just the notion. Yeah, it's tough.
It's weird.
It's tough down here.
Honestly, it's the strangest thing because it's counter to logic, where you would think with the with the vast availability of information now, it would be so easy to disprove any bullshit. And that's where, like, I find religion fascinating. I'm not a religious person by any means, but you'd think you'd be like, oh, well, it's the age of the internet. You can go online and Google shit and be like, oh yeah, the Bible's probably a crock of shit.
I want to believe this.
Exactly.
I want to believe this. Everything
it's that
else
bubble,
is
man.
Fake.
People just want to stay
Everything
in it.
Everything else is fake. But it's also easy to sort of justify the fact that everything else is fake because they have a vested they you know, as well as you have a vested interest in painting, you know, or at least it's easy to kind of to display it like that, you know.
Yeah.
To present it like it's scary.
Well, I'm glad you're coming up here for a while.
Yeah, for a few days.
Yeah.
French Canada too. That's a kind of different way of, like, I really like the way they do certain things, but then you can see sort of the excesses of, like, sort of center left administration. Does that make any sense?
Yep, it does. It does. I know what you're saying.
Strikes and things that you need to, like, and if I'm talking about myself, I'm talking about a small business.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That, like, the things that you need to make money and, like, not cost you more money.
Yes.
You know, like essential services that are just sort of like under threat of, and I grew up in Pittsburgh, man. I'm not, you know, I'm not anti-union, like, by any stretch of the imagination, but like France and I guess to some degree French Canada, because you can't really, it's not just the language that they share, right?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, there are other things that I guess are more cultural than political that I think that they you know, like when it comes down to things like meals, like sharing meals, just stupid things like that, you know, like a slightly more Mediterranean approach, like, and I love the way those cities are laid out too.
Oh yeah, they're beautiful.
Yeah,
but
they're not just beautiful. They make a certain kind of human sense.
Yeah. Well, I think
continue to.
I think Montreal is like the greatest place on earth. It's like Montreal and Nashville. Those are my two number one.
Yeah, I love Montreal. I love Quebec City too, though.
I'll be honest, man. I've never been.
No, it's amazing.
I only live like 4 or 5 hours away.
The jewel of North America.
Really? That's what everyone tells me. I don't know why I've never made the trek up there. I think it's because
Montreal is great too, though.
Yeah, I try and go there like just about every couple of weeks just to catch a show or something. I think it's the best. So tell me about this tour, man. I think we've got all the politics and everything out of the way. It was great picking your brain on that. That was awesome. So what's going on with the tour? How are things going with the Uke-Hunt tour?
They're going great. We're prepared. We're excited to see our drummer Rob who lives on the Jersey Shore. So we can't just sort of take for granted being able to play together even once a week or even once a month. So we're really excited to get to play with him. We got great chemistry with him.
Right.
Yeah, we're excited to bring a vision of a San Francisco that no longer exists for the rest of the world.
Why does it no longer exist for those of us not in the know?
It got priced out. You know,
Oh, well, yeah.
You know what's happening in cities up there. I mean, especially on the coasts. I don't know if the Great Lakes Canadian experience is like that, but like definitely Vancouver is going the same direction as San Francisco.
Yeah, like I live in Ottawa, and we're one of them. I think we're like top 3 or top. Yeah, I think we're top 3 in most expensive places to live. For housing in Canada, and it's nothing like what I have read in San Francisco, where like any house is $1 million. But
the hard thing to see is not just that; is that like they keep building market rate housing, and like right now in my neighborhood, which is this old like industrial space, we're sort of like. We're surrounded by like not only finished lofts with fabulous neighbors, because if they can afford to live in market rate housing, you know that they're great people.
Yeah.
And but you see the future sites of hundreds more of them, and all of their cars and purebred dogs, and it's not the San Francisco that Uke-Hunt will be bringing to the rest of the world, to Eastern Canada. That was more like kind of a wild, like if you're not from California, then you've never seen anything like urban California. Like, I don't know, have you been to San Francisco or have you been to Vancouver?
I have not.
Like, say, prior to 10 years ago?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? 10 or 15 years ago, like if you had been to like East Hastings or Gastown or that area, you know, which East Hastings is still sort of the same animal, but I think it's a lot worse since the fentanyl crisis and
right.
you know, and since it's getting so nice since Granville got cleaned up, you know, they did that big dig that finished a few years ago and everything. So everything got forced into this smaller and smaller area in East Hastings, and it's actually like kind of, it's scary and sad. And, and the same thing has happened here. So like, you know, you pay, people are paying, I don't pay it, but you could expect to pay something like $3,000 for a 1-bedroom apartment in some neighborhoods here. That used to just be like, you know,
that's crazy.
It used to be all Latino families.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And not to paint with too broad a stroke, but not a whole lot of money.
Yeah.
In those communities. And all of a sudden these people, they'll pay like money is no object to them. So I guess money is no object to you too. You're welcome. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like it's and so, but at the same time, they haven't done anything to sort of like clean it up, like maybe cosmetically, nor do I want them to. Yeah. But like where that leaves us is that like these people pay $3,000 a month for a 1-bedroom apartment, while outside people are shooting up, shitting, fighting, you know, getting flesh-eating diseases that they might share with you. So like the notion of like value related to cost is like, it's just gone. And then where like the poverty, I guess you could call it poverty, but like, I think calling it poverty is kind of, that's sort of an understatement.
Yeah.
Like it's sort of intensified.
Right.
And, it has to fit in smaller and smaller spaces. Whereas like all of San Francisco used to feel kind of wild.
Mm-hmm.
And like the wild man or the wild woman that you saw on the street, like maybe they're talking to themselves, maybe they're yelling at you about nonsense. They used to have a place to live. Maybe it was an SRO, or maybe it was a studio apartment in the Tenderloin or the Mission or something like that. Like now they're on the street. Like I know because I've been here for 27 years and I see some of the same faces that like, you know, like they were living rough before, but they were living.
Yeah.
And now they're like,
they had shelter.
Like they have nothing. They're desperate.
Fuck.
And like, so I don't know, that old San Francisco, like it was crazy. And to somebody from the Eastern United States, like at least initially it was really scary.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you realize that its bark is worse than its bite, that it's just this kind of like wild space, like San Francisco and Los Angeles, like at first they're scary, and LA used to be very scary, but now like you start to realize that it's just like, you know, it's fun. It's kind of a fun, sexy mess.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is disappearing. And in style and demeanor, we're still trying to maintain. So with music and with what we do, and you know, because there's so little of it to hold on to, so you know, we are fiercely trying to protect it and share it with the world.
Well, we appreciate that. So I'm curious, what made you move from Pittsburgh to San Francisco?
I mean, Pittsburgh kind of did. It's a beautiful place, but you know, like I definitely took my lumps in the 70s and 80s. It was like, you know, like my dad's an academic type,
mm-hmm.
and so his kids are, you know, kind of what you imagine an academic guy's kids would be, and they smell you in that town, like the people whose lives like that, and they want to make you feel their anguish, you know, or just a fraction of it. And that's what made me made me leave. Actually, I went back.
Really?
You know, like I came to California, but to like suburban California, which is awful, and then went back, and it just, Pittsburgh was really dysfunctional and just hard to be in. And I personally knew a lot of people that were very dysfunctional,
mm-hmm.
and some of the activities that they were engaged in were not healthy or positive. And so I wanted to dissociate myself with them. And so I came out here. And then a few years later, so did everybody else. Yeah. And now it's happening to Pittsburgh, too. Now that's turning into sort of an academic, it's been an academic kind of place for a long time, but now it's turning into like a tech restaurant hub.
Really?
Yeah, Anthony Bourdain just did a special on Pittsburgh.
Did he? I'll have to watch that. I've been to Pittsburgh just through flying. Like it's kind of a hub from here. I think I've been there like 3 or 4 times, but literally just for the airport. But see, I think Pittsburgh, I think like football, and that's it. Steel, that's it. I would not think tech, but I'll have to check that out.
Well, no more steel, but all this sort of like beautiful, rotting, like industrial infrastructure from forever ago.
Mm.
You know, like it's beautiful, and there's hills, and I mean, it's not nearly as dangerous as it used to be, and you know, it's just kind of, it's a fun place, a fun, creative place. You know, like if you're starting from the year zero, like if you're just describing it from like 4 or 5 years ago, starting then it's great. It's this wonderful place where people like that want to do art or music or whatever they want to do can like, the space is theirs. Private and public space is theirs to live in or use or work in as they see fit, because it's affordable. But the story, if you go deeper into the past, it's like a lot of people got displaced from those neighborhoods, and Pittsburgh is kind of a racist city, you could say.
Really?
But then again, like if you're starting 4 or 5 years, yeah, it's like out of a Spike Lee movie. It's like any East Coast diaspora town, you know. You know, maybe no better or no worse than any, but you know,
it's there.
Yeah, like Pennsylvania is not that far out of Pittsburgh, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, I
like
get
they
what
call
you're saying.
everywhere between Philly and Pittsburgh is Pennsylvania, and you don't have to go very far outside of Pittsburgh to get to it. But anyway, it's a great place to visit. And, you know, eat in. The Andy Warhol Museum is there. There's all kinds of crazy experimental food going on there. And, yeah, and it's a beautiful kind of Gilded Age, old industrial city.
Well, now I kind of want to go, at least to visit.
Yeah, it's great.
So now, when you went out to California the first time, is that when you kind of got into music, or were you into music in Pittsburgh and it kind of just shifted there and back?
You know, I mean, it's tough to say. Like, you know, I played violin as a kid in Pittsburgh.
Really?
You know, like I never did it. Like, yeah, but I never did it with any bands. It was as a kid.
Yeah.
You know, and then at 14, I switched to the guitar and took lessons on the guitar. And I remember because he taught me 8 Miles High by the Byrds.
Okay.
And I had a 7-inch that I ordered in the mail from SST of Husker Du's version of that, like when it first came out. And I played that for him, and he hated it. He fucking despised it because he was just some, you know, he was a hippie, you know?
Yeah.
And anyway, that's kind of where I remember. And he taught me some chords. He really liked the band, you know, which is, I guess, why my mom approved of him. So,
band's got a couple good songs.
but he did teach me some chords, and I learned those chords, and that's kind of. But I never played with any serious bands in Pittsburgh.
So that all kind of just started like culminating when you went out to California, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you know, but then again, I never played with anybody serious here either until I started singing for the Gimmies, which was more kind of like a fluke than anything else. Like, I just, I've been singing in a cover band with dudes from this band Psychotic Pineapple from here in the area.
Best name ever, by the way.
They're kind of like a proto-punk band. Like, they kind of like one of those weird missing links.
Yeah.
Between 60s punk and, you know, what we formerly know of as sort of, you know, punk. Does that makes any sense?
Yeah.
You know, because they were doing records in like the early mid 60s, and like now, if you look back at it, like, and you know, they had Brian Jones haircuts and whatnot, and now if you look back at it, it kind of like looks and sounds like garage punk, but you know, they didn't really have anybody's shoulders to be standing on at that time.
Right.
So it's this kind of cool, naive, fun, like, and there's a sense of humor to it too. So yeah, if you get a chance to listen to Psychotic Pineapple, I would definitely suggest it. But by the time I was out here, they were playing cover songs and playing Psychotic Pineapple songs, and I would sing some of those covers with them. And I guess Fat Mike came to 1 or 2 of those shows. And then when I started working in the warehouse, I would sing along to like Alice Cooper records and Stevie Wonder records. And so he asked if I wanted to sing in his idea for a covers band. Yeah. And he said, like, you know, most of the best songs on any given punk record, and this was the 90s, are the covers. And I would have argued that the only good songs on any given 90s punk record were the covers. I mean, which is not fair because especially here, like in the Bay Area, there was a lot of good punk music, especially coming out of the East Bay. Like the Mummies and the Trash Women, Supercharger, things like that were really good. But like most of that sort of like poppy stuff was a little too serious and you know, I don't know, and derivative. But then the covers wound up being kind of energetic and fun and poppy and good. And so their sort of their idea was to just do an entire record or an entire like live set of that.
Right.
And which the cool thing about that is then like, you know, you don't get to worry about, you know, getting up your own ass about like, you know, is this arranged correctly? You know, do I need to change this word or this chord or something like that? You don't get to fret over that. So what you get to fret over is how you present it.
Yeah.
Is the how. And like, I see that a lot of punk bands that write their own material for better and for worse.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of, because they think it's like, you know, you ran 100 miles, but you still have one to go.
Yeah.
Like you can't just do that and then get up and like wear shorts and, you know, like stare at your shoes while you play, you know, or just do the requisite like jump, or you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
like
No.
It
I
takes
actually
more than that.
From personal experience, unfortunately, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
It was supposed to be this burst of creativity, and when you look in like history books, that's what the late 70s, the early through the late 70s, and even through the post-punk era, is like this crazy burst of this like wild energy and creativity without people putting sort of limits on it. But then also in the early 80s, you see this idea of it being a uniform, and like these people that are very resistant to change or new ideas or new approaches for it. You know what I mean? And I don't like every new thing that came out, you know? Like, for example, like I'm not crazy about everything that Henry Rollins did after Black Flag, but like I definitely agree with like, you know, he said like, man, like you guys are supposed to be the ones that are not closed-minded, you know?
Yep.
Like I'm definitely open to him trying to do like PIL. Like people were really resistant to PIL because of like these kind of pop hooks and synthesizers and stuff like that didn't fit their sort of narrow idea of what they thought that like their underground music was supposed to sound like.
Yeah.
And then like, and not just the music, because I think, you know, the Gimmies sort of are like fit a very narrow, musically at least, idea of what punk is supposed to sound like. But I think how we try to present ourselves visually and, you know, conversationally, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
you know?
No.
In our little monologues, you know, like I think that's something that I hope at least is more interesting than your run of the mill sort of formal punk band idiom.
No, it is, and what is kind of cool, and I think you guys kind of got lightning in a bottle with it, is you're all incredibly talented musicians, all on your own. Like it's not, I don't know, like not, I don't want to use the term like cookie cutter cover band where it's like you have like just a bunch of musicians, but it's like you're all so uniquely talented and so talented in your own right that it's this perfect mixture to make that project work so well. And that's what I really like about it.
That's very sweet of you to say.
Well, I like.
And then as far as Uke-Hunt goes, I don't know how. You know, because that doesn't even really fit inside of a punk paradigm. But
it almost does,
like,
though.
Those are kind of the crowds that we're hoping to. You know, like we're trying to. We're trying to offer them an alternative, and not one that's like some sort of like yacht rock thing, like because the tempos and the vibe that we're looking for is a rock and roll kind of, but it doesn't, the tones, like sonically, it doesn't, you know, it doesn't hit your ears like a rock band. That's where I think it's unique and it's fun.
Well, I was listening to your album today, and it's kind of awesome. I'll be honest, I've never listened to like kind of a uke-driven band, if you will, and it's like you just said, it's got a weird dynamic, like an audio dynamic to it that it just, I don't know, it hits you in kind of a cool way. Like, is the recording process for you different than it is for when you're doing like a Gimmies record where it's like a full band and everything like that? Like, do you approach it differently, or is it kind of just the same? Or are you thinking about like, well, how are people going to actually hear these songs? If that made sense.
I mean, what I'm trying to do ultimately, just in my own life, is like just sort of not, trying not to have formulas for how I approach things like recording. Mm-hmm. And the thing about live is that, like, yeah, I like to prepare some things to say, and I like to wear costumes that have been meticulously prepared and laid out for us by our wardrobe genius, Audra. I should mention her because she's really a big part of our live show too. But yeah, all these things are prepared and contrived, but when it works out, especially when you're talking about like the sixth night in a row of saying some of the same things, the thing that makes it exciting is the sort of unpredictable things that pop into your head.
Yeah.
And when the more of a formula that you bring, especially to something like recording, because already by its nature, you're there to fix the mistakes that you make, you know? Mm-hmm. And then, theoretically, what an engineer or producer, whatever the hell that means, is there to do is to help you fix mistakes, but also to keep you from fixing too many mistakes.
Right.
And to keep it sort of feeling live and spontaneous. And I'm happy with that Uke-Hunt record, but it's not necessarily reflective of what we're going to sound like live. Like, I think we sound much more like a rock and roll band now. I mean, there's been changes in personnel, you know, as there always are. Mm-hmm. The Bay Area is really tough on musicians, man. Like, they, you know, there's not a whole lot left, but so it's hard to kind of keep a consistent roster of people unless you're paying them ungodly amounts of money, and who is?
Oh, geez.
You know, and then plus there's just not the same ethic up here as there is in other cities like Los Angeles, but that's neither here nor there. Mm-hmm. I'd say we're more of a rock and roll band than what you hear on the record, but it's still, like, sonically, like you said, it still has the same sort of, like, it defies your expectations of what a rock band is supposed to be.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Yeah,
it kind of emasculates it, but like, and then, like, to me, the coolest, most driving force of any band is the rhythm and the tempo and the time mm-hmm. and the beat, and that we've worked hard not to emasculate, you know?
Yeah.
Like that like is, you know, that's the thing that makes people like want to set shit on fire and have sex in the bathroom. You know what I mean? Like that's like, which is what we're hoping for. It's like, which is not necessarily masculine energy. It's just energy.
Yeah.
Rock and roll energy and fire, which is, you know, and it's just what a lot of people, especially in a narrow kind of punk sensibility, what they expect is loud, distorted guitars, you know?
Yep.
When they are there to experience rock and roll, and that's not what we want to do, like, because we don't fit into that kind of narrow thing. And I feel like San Francisco never did fit into that narrow thing. Like as soon as punk happened, people were looking to do other experimental things in this town. And like this town, as much as being, you know, sort of an incubator for bands, this has always been the first stop for places that were where even more bands came from, or arguably more important bands came from, which is like Los Angeles and the South Bay and Orange County and all those bands. This is their first stop. So, and I think San Franciscans were always looking for something different and always looking for something new out of their music and culture and art. And it still exists in pockets here. You know what I mean? Like it's not all the way gone. Like I still have friends here, and they people still put on shows here. Mm-hmm. But you know, like it's like a candle and the wind is blowing. You know
I was gonna say
like,
it's any day now kind of thing.
Yeah, it's weird. Like you see these people, these young, and the interesting thing is, you know, but I try not to think about it too much. But the interesting thing is like at least like nominally they're political allies.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
I
feel you.
When they're talking about money, they're really libertarian.
Yeah.
And when they're talking about like what you know, big companies should be allowed to do or say or advocate for or lobby, like we were talking about before, like they're very libertarian. But then when it comes to social issues, you know, like marriage equality, equal pay, all the, you know, all like at least theoretically they are your ally. But it feels like when I'm outside, you know, sometimes like they're looking at me like, oh wow, you're still here? Okay, we'll get to you soon. You know what I mean? Like it really, like it has that kind of feeling here now.
Yeah.
And I know I'm not the only one in the only city to be saying that. Like I know New Yorkers feel like that. I know that native New Yorkers are like really disgusted and frustrated with what's happening there too. I was just in Sydney, Australia with the Gimmies, and it's kind of the same thing. And again, these are people that are, at least theoretically, are your allies.
Yeah.
They're just like, you know, preening, overpaid, underfed cunts with pocket squares and purebred dogs. You know, that like, you know, you'd be hard pressed to explain to me like what they're like, what they offer, you know, what they truly contribute to society at large in any kind of real sense, other than making themselves and somebody else more money.
Yeah.
But theoretically, they're your allies. But they're not, because all they do is sort of drive up, including the prices of rent.
Yeah.
Making landlords more money, and then everybody's got to pay them, so everybody else raises their prices.
Jeez. So would you ever move, do you think? Or are you like you're good?
I'd always want to keep a foot here, man, because it's a beautiful place. Like there's a reason all these people came here, you know. And I'm not a native, so like I find myself more resentful than natives at times. Like natives are a little bit more sanguine about it, and like especially older natives, and they understand that people have always swarmed to San Francisco and changed people's style of life.
Right.
You know, like it or not, and I like it. You know, what happened in the Castro, like I wasn't here, but what happened in the Castro in the 70s, you know, looking back at it as a historical event, like that was pretty amazing for people.
Yeah.
You know, like I was here when Gavin Newsom started marrying people, and
that's awesome.
I'm very critical of that guy and about Democrats like him, but at the same time, he did what a politician is supposed to do.
Yeah.
Like to stay out ahead of an issue and make constituents happy.
Yep.
And he married people, including my neighbors. You know what I
no
mean?
Way.
Like that it meant, and it meant he and then other people too, which I guess you could call activists, but whatever. Like they, you know, this is their fucking town, and they, this is their state.
Yeah.
And they did it, and it meant a lot to people. But when people came to the Castro in the 70s, there were already people there, and they changed their way of life. People like Dan White, the guy that shot Harvey Milk and George Moscone.
Yep.
And he was like, I guess, existentially terrified at what was happening. I happen to think it was positive, but so it's kind of like, you see what I'm saying? Like, it's all a matter of perspective.
Right.
Like this too shall pass, maybe, but I don't know. Usually when like the rents go down and the housing prices go down, it's because of some sort of like horrible event, either like a natural disaster or, like a crash in some kind of, or some bubble busting or something like that, which, I don't know that I hope for that.
Yeah. No, I don't.
Unless only in as much as like it brings the rents down and kind of like levels the playing field a little bit. Like, that's great, but people die in earthquakes.
Yeah.
And like when bubbles bust, I was here after the first tech boom.
Yeah.
And I watched some of the same people that sort of like lorded their relative position to you out on the street. I watched them turn into tweakers and junkies.
I believe it.
So, I don't necessarily want that bubble to bust, because we don't need to feed the army of homeless people and junkies. And I mean, because like we don't have, it's kind of like we were talking about with the whole healthcare thing. You can't get people to spend money to help people, and San Francisco is a perfect example of that. Los Angeles too, Vancouver too. It's although I think you're slightly more progressive up there, it's sort of the same phenomenon. It's like it's
well, it's a weird,
really hard issue to confront.
I was just gonna say, like it's even in here we're very guilty of pretending like things are okay. I mean, I talk fairly openly with my circle of friends when we talk about issues in Ottawa, and it's like, we got it pretty good. It's like, and we do. And to give kind of an example for those listening, like Ottawa's a little bit bigger than Boston in terms of population. And we're pretty good for the most part, and our crime comparatively is pretty good. But like, we actually have a gun problem in the city. Like our gun-related homicides are on a rise, and they're higher than they've ever been. And we have a huge illegal gun problem right now. But no one wants to talk about that. And no one's, oh no, but like, we're great. We're the nation's capital. It's like, we got parliament. It's pretty. And all those things are true. But we really do have to address the fact that, we got a serious gun violence problem in the city right now. And like, it's so easy, like we were talking about earlier, to just gloss over these things and live in a bubble. And I'm sure in Vancouver with, the drugs and everything like that, it's kind of the same thing. Like, Vancouver's so pretty and beautiful. How do you don't want to taint it by being like, oh, there are people, 10, 12 people dying every day from fentanyl overdoses. Like, it's sad.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, I mean, most cities down here, at least the ones near water, are run by Democrats. Yeah. And as I'm fond of saying, like, my scumbags are blue. Like, I have no illusions of what the other side is. And like what they represent, like the dystopia that they would like to, well, at least the dystopia outside of their gated community.
Exactly.
They want to bring the world to its knees, but yeah, there's I see a lot of denial on our side too, and it's like, it's kind of how they fight, like, do you want us to be perfect, or do you want us to win?
Yeah.
And that's this kind of like imploding logic that, like, it was like suck it up and vote for Clinton, which is what I did.
Yeah.
You know, but I hate the people that say that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I really do, because I thought that's not what I thought representative democracy was supposed to be.
Yeah.
You know, like,
I
definitely
agree.
you're supposed to be smart. You're supposed to be smart, but if you can see that something that resembles your voice or more closely resembles your voice is actually speaking in the halls of power in D.C. or in Sacramento or wherever, why wouldn't you vote for that person?
Yeah.
You know? But yet we were told to suck it up and vote for the centrist technocrat.
Yeah.
You know?
The
Which
whole
is what I
lesser,
did,
the whole lesser of two
look
evils
at
thing
me.
is scary.
Do you want me to be perfect or you want me to win?
Yeah.
And then, you know, like they can just gesture towards the other side, like, you know, you want that guy?
Yeah.
You know? But because of how toothless and how weak their position was and how, like, because they had no compelling vision to offer people that were suffering, that's the guy that wins.
Yep.
The guy that they were gesturing at and using, well, you know, it's me or him. Well, I guess it's him.
Yep.
Because you guys had nothing.
Again, it's living in that bubble, pretending that everything's okay. Of course they're going to vote for us. Look, we're so much nicer than they are. It's not how it works.
Yeah. Well, and that, like, we don't think that we're living in a bubble.
Yeah. Oh, and he played the game too.
It's
to be
those
fair,
people that are living in the bubble.
He 100% played the game. He knew
City
how
people.
to win, and that's how he won.
Yeah. Well, I mean, city people live in a bubble too, and the more expensive cities get, the easier it is to live in a bubble.
Oh, for sure.
And then, like, to pretend like, you know, you drive a Prius or you're for marriage equality, you know, you're for, you know, gender neutral bathrooms, that you're a terrific person.
Yeah. Well, they were even saying, like, I was watching an interview not too long ago, and they were like, you know, Hillary Clinton wasn't for marriage equality like less than 10 years ago. It's like,
right.
Like, so it's just
because she was scared of the consequences.
Yeah, exactly. Like you said,
because she was scared of political consequences. And that's one thing I'll say for Gavin Newsom, man. He knew where he lived.
Yep.
He knew what side his bread was buttered on.
Yeah, it's such a strange time. Like, it really, really is. Like,
yeah, but it's interesting at least. And if anything, like, I love American trash, and this is the age of American trash.
Yeah, it's a weird thing because I did a bunch of traveling in the States last year, kind of for the first time, and traveled to a couple places, and I fell in love with a lot of America. Like, got some really cool fucking places. Like, Nashville is genuinely one of my favorite places to go and visit. I think it's beautiful and it's a really chill place, and I'd love to take my family there. And it's like, but now it's like, it's a really scary kind of energy that's going on in the US right now. And it's a weird, I don't know. I hate using words like energy, but it's a weird vibe, let's say, you know, to kind of try and explain things to your kids, what's going on. And, like, you know, I want to keep my kids informed and educated, and they're getting to that age where, you know, you have to have that, like, oh, why are there tiki torches going down, like, towards a statue? And, like, it's just, you have to have all these weird fucked up conversations you didn't necessarily see yourself having.
Or why, when we crossed this street, did, like, the world suddenly go upside down?
Yeah, like, right away almost.
Because and then that's something that, you know, in the information age, we know more and more about. And then, you know, considering the guy that we had in office for the last 8 years and the community that he came from, and that his wife came from, more importantly, or more accurately, and all the access to all the information that we had about what was going on in certain communities, and then what some cops were doing in certain communities. Like, we thought, like, you know, we thought things were going to shift.
Yeah.
And we thought maybe things were going to change, and then they did.
Yep. Yeah.
And not the way that we thought that they were going to.
Not even a little bit.
No.
Jeez. Well, my man, I have taken up an hour of your time, and I feel like I could talk to you all day, though. I'm going to be totally honest. I've really enjoyed our conversation.
It's been very fun.
Yeah, man. We'll have to do it again sometime, for sure. Indeed. All right. Well,
if you can make it to our show in Toronto, we'd love to see you, man. It's I think it's 529 Bloor Street. It's a place called Lee's.
Yeah.
The Cave. At Lee's.
I'm gonna try. I know I was talking to Melanie, and I know I can't go to the Toronto one, but the one in Montreal, I'm gonna try and shoot it to if I can, because that's
at the Piranha Bar.
Yeah, that's a hop, skip, and a jump away from where I live. But it's also my wife's birthday. I was telling her, I was like, "Do you think I can sell taking my wife to a Uke-Hunt show? You think that's a good sell?" I was like, maybe.
Why not?
I'll have to see. But yeah, I really, I'll definitely, if I don't catch you in the next couple weeks, I'll definitely catch you on your next tour. Are you gonna tour with the Gimmies, you think, in the next little bit? Maybe new album, maybe.
I hope so.
Right on. You guys should come up and do Pooza Fest. That's what you should do.
Oh, we've done that. It was a few years ago, but we did that. And we would definitely be open to doing it again.
Great. I'm going to start harassing them online immediately.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I will. I'm dead serious.
Don't say it came from me.
No.
If it comes from you, it's for...
I'm all about the power of social media to bother companies to do things I want in the most non-selfish way. But like right now, I have a campaign harassing Jackson Guitars to make Jake Kiley from Strung Out his own signature guitar, because I think Jake's a really great guy, and I would love a guitar that has his name on it. So
there you go. Advocate for change.
Exactly. We're all here for good, right?
Theoretically, at least.
All right, man. Well, thank you again for your time. It was awesome talking to you, and I hope to talk to you again soon.
Thank you. Yeah, likewise.
All right, take care, man.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. You as well.